questions. Okay, so can we get the slides? Awesome tips, love it. I think this is going to be on YouTube, correct? So then we're good to go. Great speech, Omar. Heart, you drive. Thanks, babe. I love it. Thank you very much. Speaking of failures, can you share yours? Oh, how much time do we have? Tons of failures. Webinar Ninja is a self-funded company. We've been bootstrapped from day one, and we've been profitable from day one. But that comes with challenges, just like a funded company has challenges. Probably the biggest challenge we had is that whenever we rushed the hiring process, often it didn't work out for us. It wasn't a good cultural fit. Not that they were maybe not a great hire, but not good for us at that time. Maybe they're great for us now, and we're at that stage. So that was kind of our biggest challenge, I would say. How do you ensure personality, skills, diversity when hiring? If you're hiring primarily on attitude, do more timid applicants still have an opportunity? That's a very good question. Definitely, timid is a very vague word. You definitely have to have strong communication skills if you're going to be a remote player, and all our teammates are remote. So you got to be able to communicate, whether it's text, video, audio. You have to have some level of communication skills. You don't have to be, super flamboyant and high energy all the time. The other thing is that I have to work with these people every day. I didn't create a business so I can be, locked up with people that I don't want to work with. I tend to want to work with people that I enjoy their company, right? So, and I think Nicole feels the same, my co-founder and wife, that we want to work with people that we just enjoy their company as well. So it's your business. That's a choice that you can make. If we already hired unmotivated players, that's a good question, because that's a tough one, because they may be providing a great service or they're doing a great job. But what happens often is that when the overwhelming majority of the players on your team are very motivated, self-motivated, they can influence them in some way. And if they don't influence them, there's nothing wrong with saying that this is not a good fit and parting ways. I know that sometimes is hard, but sometimes you have to change so you can grow. How would you challenge a software engineer? Why would I want to challenge him? I'm not sure. Ping pong, maybe? I don't know. I'm not really sure about that question, but I wouldn't challenge in terms of a task. So, when we do our interviews, we have our lead dev be on those interviews for the technical portion. I do want to say that when we run our interviews now, we've grown a lot in this process, but Nicole and I like to do the primary interview, the first interview, after we screen the application and have gone through a couple emails with them, because there's no reason to have a technical interview if you're just not a good fit, if you're not motivated, if you're not. When I say motivated, I mean you have to want to win. If this is just another job, if you don't want to see our users win, you don't want to see the product win, then I just don't have time for that, period. We all work very hard to build our business. We sacrificed a lot. I'm not going to roll the dice with somebody who doesn't have that belief. So we have that primary interview first. Once they pass that interview, then we go into a technical interview, and if that's a developer, then our lead dev would come in and ask all the technical questions required. Okay, what else? What if you yourself need the motivation? Definitely true. I get this question asked a lot on the podcast. How do I get motivated? And my answer might hurt a little bit. Like when you ask somebody, hey, how do I motivate myself? How do I get myself going? I just say, maybe this is not for you. If you constantly need to be motivated all the time, it's not for you. It's not your gig, right? Maybe you need to find something else that doesn't require you to do something external to feel motivated. So for me, I don't really always have this feeling of, oh, I got to pump myself up so I get to work. I have enough reasons to get up in the morning to make it happen, whether it's my ambition for the company or whether it's I don't want to let my team down. There's all this sense of responsibility. Maybe that comes from me growing up with immigrant parents, where it's like you just can't disappoint your parents because they've changed their whole life to move to a different country. You better get A's, right? So if I don't get A's, I'm going to disappoint them. So maybe that comes from that. I don't know. But my point is that I can't tell you where that comes from. I just have it. What if a potential hire is too shy or anxious to be super motivated on interviews? I often tell them in an email before the interview, this is the time to show your best self. This is the time to really brag, to really tell us more about yourself. If you don't give me the information, then I have nothing to base a decision on. If I don't see, who you really are, and I have to guess, you're not really helping yourself in any way. And maybe that's a little bit harsh for people, but for me, I just like to give them a little bit of expectation. I'm expecting you to be on your game on this interview because, hey, we're interviewing a lot of people. I want to see the best version of you. Okay, how is to open a company with your wife? How do you open a company with your wife? Start with a conversation. And everything's 50-50 as because she's married to me, so it's nothing I could do with that. I mean, as advice, maybe it's not for everybody. I think it kind of happened organically with me and Nicole, just because we had a professional relationship before we had an intimate relationship. So we have mutual respect professionally, and that kind of works. And again, we have to work on it. So often we have to discuss each other's roles and what our responsibilities are, and also there's life. If I'm going to be hanging the laundry, and then she also has to go get the shopping, somebody's got to do this meeting. That's the reality of things. Okay, what do you think are the most important skills and course that a professional should take to stay relevant in today's world? Number one, communication skills. If you can't communicate your ideas are worthless. Period. If people can't understand what you're saying, period, on your sales page, in your emails, on stage, in a one-on-one conversation, so I would say communication would be number one. How do you access culture other than just how enthusiastic they are on the call? That's a good question, and maybe I need to clarify. I'm not looking for a jack in the box. Like, hey, what's up? I'm on the interview. What's going on? Like somebody manic? No, I'm not looking for that. We're just looking for somebody who is genuinely interested in working for us, right? That really wants to be a part of the company. One of the biggest indicators is how prepared are they for the interview. If they start the interview and say, hey, I really love your podcast. I looked at your website. I signed up for a free trial and gave my credit card. Whoa, this person's really interested. It's not much work, but it's like miles ahead of the competition. Most people won't do that. When people actually try your product and Google you and find out what you're all about, you read a few blog posts, that's somebody who really wants the job, somebody who's enthusiastic, somebody who's motivated, and is not like, I'll do that when I get the job. That's a big difference right there. What are the questions you ask during an interview? Oh, wow. I mean, tons of different questions about how they work, their actual work environment. Like we ask them exactly like, what's your internet speed? What do you like? If you have kids, who's taking care of the kids during the day or during your shift? We talk about their actual space. We also talk about all different kinds of things depending on the role, obviously. Time zones, and we talk about, I can't even think of all the questions we have, but generally we try to understand who they are, what their working environment's going to be, and if they're going to be a good fit for our team. How do you, is the next question? Okay, sorry. How do you see or spot motivation from an introvert? I think that first answer I gave before about how well prepared they are for the interview, how much do they know about your company, your products, your services, about you as the founder. If they don't have time to do a 20-minute Google search, a YouTube search, and hear your voice on a YouTube video before they hear it on an interview, that's just somebody who doesn't really, just hacking it. They're not really interested. I need a winner. I don't want somebody who's going to just sit there and be like, yeah, I think you have a software, you guys are like communications. No, sorry. If your team has poor performance for 3 months, are you going to keep motivating them or looking for a replacement? I mean, that depends on poor performance. That needs to be evaluated with their manager. We would have to take a look at that on an individual basis. What advice would future Omar give today's Omar? None, because future Omar is much more wise. Yeah. So how do you create a challenge at a job for your employee? Um, y- I like to think about what will take them a little bit outside of their comfort zone. So I gave the example of maybe our developers. Sometimes some of them uh, don't have direct contact with the customer. So if they take on some customer service tickets, that's not going to kill them, right? But it's going to give them a feel of what they actually are trying to solve. What are the things that they're trying to do? Also, what type of people they're serving. So that pushes them a little bit outside the box. And then you can take it a step further. You can have a developer go to a conference with you and speak to some of your users. Maybe some users are going to show up and just have some one-on-one chats. You can have a customer service rep, like I mentioned, do a sales webinar or an onboarding webinar where they're asked questions on how to do things that will inform them on how to create better tutorials or how to answer questions faster on a ticket. So you got to be a little bit creative about it, but as you start thinking of ideas, they kind of snowball. You can run webinars on Zoom. What is the key difference between Zoom webinars and Webinar Jam? Well, I mean, my instant answer is free trial. Give it a try. But main difference is Zoom is a great tool, and it's a great conferencing tool. So it's great for teleconferencing, video conferencing, several people at one time. We're a one or few to many tool. So if you want to run a workshop, or you want to run a sales webinar, or you want to do an onboarding thing, or like next week I'm doing a webinar for all our members to introduce all the new features we just released and walk them through it. So we have like 5, 6, 7, 800, 1,000 people on that webinar. It's more conducive when you're one to many or few to many. And we have all the marketing side of things, meaning your landing pages, your email notifications. We have something called the Webinar Finder, which is a solution to a problem that a lot of our users had. Like, I'm not getting enough attendees, so we have like the iTunes of webinars. So it's a marketplace for webinars that are free. Webinar Ninja, yeah? Yeah, I think you're asking the difference between Zoom and Webinar Jam. So so the Webinar Finder allows you to get more attendees to be able to register for your webinar. They can check out what category you list your webinar on, and you can choose to make it public if you like, or private. So I encourage you to have a free trial. I'd probably say like the real answer, the difference between us and something like Webinar Jam, great tool. It's very marketing centric. We are a company that really believes in being transparent with our customers in terms of just being honest with them. Like, there's nothing, we don't have a feature called just-in-time webinar. Like, you're not going to just all of a sudden stumble upon a live webinar when it's not live. So things like that we don't have, just because if it's recorded, it says recorded. If it's live, it says live. Because we believe that webinars are a great tool to build trust with your audience. And once they lose trust, it's hard to get it back. I mean, how many of us have run a live webinar and they ask, the first question is this live? Because they've been burnt too many times. So we're trying to clean that up in the webinar world a little bit. Do you do a company retreat to connect in person? If so, is it beneficial? Great question. This is something that Nicole and I had like, we want to go to Bali to do this conference, but we also want to do some recon because this is something that we want to do the next coming year for our team. We have a team of roughly 30 team members, and we want to kind of bring them together because, again, we just like hanging out with them online, so let's do it together and make it happen. So this is definitely in our roadmap. How do you understand they are truly motivated by not saying what you want to hear during the hiring process? If you've been doing this a few times, you'll know. You'll sniff it out. I'm not super young, but I'm also, I'm 38. I've been around the block a few times. I understand when people are bullshitting me. So you'll know through trial and error. And sometimes that's the only way to find out. Answer that question about Jam. Omar, you're like Zig Ziglar of startups. Thank you. I'll take that. Thanks for the talk. What hiring platforms have worked in the past? Depends on the job, but we've used things when we started out, just like freelancer.com, Upwork. We work remotely is a great site from the guys from 37 Signals, Basecamp now, that hires. It targets a lot of qualified candidates, especially developers, designers. That's a great site, and just also posting it on your own business website, your own website on a jobs page. And we also have a referral program within our team. So if a teammate refers somebody onto our team that's a great fit, they go through the interview, they pass the 3-month probation, that person on our team gets kind of like a nice bonus. So it's a way to kind of, and it's good because they probably know them personally and they can set up expectations, say, hey, I love working here because of these things, but you should know, this is what they expect. Is disciplinary action or consequences okay? Can this be considered a motivation? I don't feel good with that. I think we're all adults. I don't know about disciplinary action. Like if somebody steals or something like that, yeah, of course you got to fire them. You got to do the right thing. I think when you communicate, again, the reasons why, the bigger picture, the stakes, they understand that if this fails, it's a big deal. Like they also want to save face. They want to make sure that, everything goes well, and they're kind of invested in that way. Isn't being super motivated a founder thing? Why enforce it on employees who just love doing their job? I don't see motivated as something being, somebody who's introverted or extroverted. You could be an introvert and be motivated. Joel mentioned that he's an introvert, right? But you think he's going to build Buffer without being motivated? No, of course not. He's a motivated guy. He's somebody who's driven, that wants to win, and that's why he's where he is today. So I think that it's not, a founder thing. I think you could be introverted. I think the players on your team can have a different personality or be a quiet personality. But if they are achievers, they want to win, they want to be able to contribute in some way, they want to feel significant. These are kind of indicators that you're a good fit for our team. Now, I'm just sharing what I do with our team, what Nicole and I do with our team. Maybe it's not a great fit for you, but this is the team I want to work with. How do you deal with poor performers? Let go off right away or give second or third chance? I think, like Dom mentioned, that you have to kind of give feedback in the moment. If things are not going right, you got to course correct as soon as possible. And if you can help them and guide them, sometimes it's just misaligned expectations or miscommunication, and you got to be able to guide them through those problems. So no problem, you can do that. If it's a habitual thing and it's month in, month out, you can have a few chats with them. That's what we like to do. But at some time you can let them go, and it depends on the terms that you have in your contract with this employee. You got to obviously do the right thing. So that's kind of my suggestion. Just kind of help them along the way, and then if things don't go right, it's not a crime to let somebody go. You're a great presenter, Omar. Were you like this before Webinar Ninja? My first public speaking experience was addressing my 33 teachers when I was 25. It was nerve-wracking. I was looking at the floor constantly. I was totally, not in my element. But over time, after what we call in the teaching world, doing 5 matinees a day, teaching 5 classes a day, right? So you kind of get those nerves out. But I got to say that teaching is not the same thing as being on stage and presenting and performing, what some people like to call it. So I have had some training. I have a mentor when it comes to this, and I've worked on it, so I still have some work to do. I'm going to be watching my video later and be like, ugh, what did I do that for? How do you keep your people motivated long term? Jen, who's doing her PhD, asked me the question, like, how many people have you let go or fired, turnover? And we've been very fortunate to have, a pretty good, solid core team. And I think, I know this sounds cheesy, but because we're remote, we have to really over-communicate how much we appreciate every single team member. There's nothing wrong with even putting it in your calendar, because you may be forgetful because you're doing so many things at the founder or as you're building the business. Say, hey, I gotta take a time out and say, by the way, that was a great job you did with that project, or this design is brilliant, or the way you handled that customer, even though we lost them, was fantastic. Okay? I think Dominic, he mentioned this, that just-in-time praise. So I think that's really important because sometimes we don't feel appreciated in our job. I mean, back when I was a teacher and back when I was a middle manager in education, I felt frustrated because I felt like my work was not being recognized and I was contributing so much to the university that I could never take with me once I'm gone. So you have to recognize that fact and be a little bit grateful and show your gratitude, I say. What do you believe are the metrics variable for making a job a great job? I think the number one metric is your actual team members saying, I love working here. I think at some point they have to actually express that in some way. If they don't say that, then you may want to ask them. There's obviously things we can look at, in terms of more detailed data, but that for me is the number one metric. And sometimes they'll say it unintentionally, like maybe they're conducting an interview with you for a new candidate, and they'll say, hey, this is our work environment. It may be intense at times, but I love it because it stretches me, it makes me grow, and I love what we're building. And it makes me feel like, okay, great, I like this interview. I feel good. Anyway, so the point is that you want to hear that from them at some point. Like, I think we have time for one more question. What is winning to you? What's your personal purpose, and how is it fostered through your staff? Sorry, this is a heavy question. I mean, when I say winning, I just feel like it's you have to care. You have to try. You have to have something inside you that says, I want to do better, right? If you're okay with the status quo, whether it's like I feel good with my job, I have a good salary, and things are going well, that kind of differentiates winning and losing to me. I mean, it's not about like physically losing, right? But if we're all going to be honest, we can look back in our own lives and our own families and our own friends and say, yeah, that's somebody I want to be around because they're a winner, right? And I don't want to say they're a loser, but they're definitely not a winner. Some people are just not winners. And for me, that's kind of a good gauge. Maybe it comes from my days playing sport. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it.